get your brackets ready. We have a very special guest here on the Rundown, live from Chicago. We're going to welcome Professor Bergen, who's a professor of mathematics, and you may know him from a video a few years back where Professor Bergen showed us the odds, the chances of predicting a perfect bracket, and those numbers are astounding. Professor Bergen, first of all, welcome and thank you for coming on. We're going to jump right into it here. You made this video a couple years back, I believe in 2012. Why did you want to make the video regarding the odds of predicting a perfect bracket?
Well, it was actually DePaul's idea because for several years I was getting contacted from the media about where the numbers came from in order to get a perfect bracket, and DePaul thought there might actually be some interest in putting out a video. I was pretty skeptical that there'd be interest, but the popularity of the videos actually surprised me quite a bit.
All right, well, I mean, this video did blow up. It was on YouTube.
I was just wondering, could you maybe break down the odds of us for what it's like to get a perfect bracket? How hard is it to do that?
Well, the first thing one has to realize is getting a perfect bracket is a little bit different from picking every game correctly. Because when the seedings are announced on Sunday, there are 68 teams, and that means 67 games, because 67 of the 68 teams are going to lose one game. But the perfect bracket ignores the 4 playing games. So the teams in the playing games are sort of bunched in as a pair throughout the bracket, and you only have to make 63 only. You only have to make 63 correct predictions to get a perfect bracket. Now, if you're just guessing, picking 63 games correctly is like sitting down and flipping a coin and getting heads 63 times in a row. If you sit down with a coin and start flipping it and think of every tail as an incorrect bracket, you realize you're going to get incorrect bracket after incorrect bracket. You're never going to get close to getting 63 heads in a row. And if you were just guessing, the odds of getting 63 heads in a row is, and the math is very easy, you just multiply 63 copies of 2. Well, that doesn't sound particularly exciting or complicated. 2 raised to the 63rd power. But if you get your calculator out and expand 2 to the 63rd power, that's where you get 9 followed by 18 zeros. So if you were just guessing, if you were just flipping a coin on each game, I would put everyone puts the odds at 1 in 9 quintillion. And although the odds are different, if you know something about basketball, I think it's really the 9 quintillion number that sort of pops everybody's eyes.
Wow. 1 in 9 quintillion.
What is that number? I've never
I
heard
don't.
that
So 18 zeros. Now I've been flipping a coin for years, and I've gotten 60 heads in a row before. But every time I get to 61, it comes up as tails.
Harvey Dent can get 63 in a row. He's really good at it.
You have the same-sided coin, of course. Very, you don't make your own luck. Francis, I know we have some more questions we need to run by.
Yeah.
Professor Bergen here, live from DePaul.
I mean, just first and foremost, this bracket, the bracket environment around NCAA basketball is what makes it so interesting for me. Since I've came to the US, it's been fantastic. There's been people starting their bracket ideas months in advance and like, oh, I need to get this with this team. I wonder how they'll perform. And I'm like, I'm just a fan of the sport, so I just kind of watched it and I was like, this is fascinating to me. But I want to know, pitching it to the professor, if you are an in-depth, knowledgeable fan of college basketball, does this increase your chances of getting a perfect bracket?
Well, it certainly helps a lot to know something about basketball. In particular, in the men's tournament, since it's gone to the present format, a number 1 has never lost to a number 16. Well, if you were flipping a coin and just flipping a coin for the 1 versus 16, then you're probably going to pick one of the 16 seeds to win. But the point is that's just going to kill your bracket in reality because the 16 seed has never beaten a number 1 seed. So there's no exact number as to the likelihood of getting a perfect bracket if you know something about basketball. There are numbers floating around, 200 billion, 50 billion. I actually put the odds at 1 in 128 billion. So 128 billion, much, much smaller number than a quintillion, but 1 in 128 billion, still significantly harder than winning the lottery, for example.
So what he's telling us, there's a chance.
There's still.
So you're saying there's a chance.
He's telling us I don't have a chance because I don't know basketball as well as you guys. So.
Right. Well, what's really interesting about that is that that is true. No 16 has beat a 1 seed, but there have been 15 seeds who beat a 2 seed. Justin, I know you went to Wisconsin. I know you may remember a fateful day years back when Wisconsin fell as a 2 seed. My father went to Wisconsin. I'm a Badger fan alongside with you here. But it's it's so tough when you're looking at these brackets and predicting what could happen. And I absolutely love seeing the people who have, you know, a perfect bracket through the first round. And you know, they go out and they boast about it, but some of that has to be a degree of a little bit of luck.
Yeah.
Because last year, Florida Gulf, or it might have been 2 years ago, Florida Gulf Coast University made a run, won the first 2 rounds, upset Georgetown. Nobody saw that coming, and the only people who had Florida Gulf Coast were alumni of Florida Gulf Coast. Victor, before we wrap up, we do have one more time for one more question if you want to throw one for the professor.
Yeah, Professor, what is your strategy of choosing your bracket? Do you have any tips that you can pass along either for recreational or you know, wagering purposes?
Well, but before I answer that, I wonder if I could go back to the point about being perfect after the first round. Because in coming up with this 1 in 128 billion number, that's the odds of being perfect through all 63 games. But in doing that calculation, the odds of being perfect, if you know things about basketball after the first round, is 1 in 17,000. So if you've got millions of people filling out brackets who know something about basketball, and if there aren't many of the Florida Gulf Coast winning the first round, if there aren't any big upsets in the first round, you really shouldn't be surprised if there were a few hundred people who were perfect when you've shrunk down from 64 teams down to 32. Now, last year, there were lots and lots and lots of upsets, so nobody had a perfect bracket in this big, you know, billion-dollar challenge after the first round. But the media is going to go nuts on Saturday morning if after the first 32 games there are a few hundred perfect brackets. But that will be perfectly understandable. Now, if you want a strategy for a successful bracket, take a look at whatever bracket I fill out and do the exact opposite. Because I might be able to tell you the odds of someone getting a perfect bracket, but trust me, you don't want to follow my lead if you're trying to get a perfect bracket.
Well, Professor Bergen, thank you so much for joining us. He's coming in from DePaul University, professor of mathematics. It was never one of my strongest subjects when I was in school. But guys, just so we can wrap this up here real quick, we know Kentucky is going in as the outright favorite. We wish good luck to everybody on their bracket. Selection Sunday is around the corner. I believe it is this Sunday. Everybody from the Rundown, Victor Chi, Francis Maxwell, Justin Mosier, Jason Rubin. You can check us out at TYT Sports, youtube.com/TYT Sports. Check out the postgame on YouTube at youtube.com/thepostgame.